Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to this absolutely fantastic event. I am Elizabeth Harper. I am a women's success coach. I specialize in self-confidence and self-image coaching. I want to thank you so much for joining tonight and investing in yourself. So I will be talking about your life story, how it affects your identity, and how it's either moving you forward or holding you back. So, why would you want to listen to this? Because by the end of my talk, you'll understand why your life story identifies who you are, why it's likely negative, and how to rewrite your life story to lead you to success, and how to write a new script. So, doing this is going to increase your confidence. It's going to better your life overall towards success. Um, and changing your life story is one of the most important things that you can do. So, people have been telling stories for ages. That's what we do. That is something that we all have in common. But the most powerful stories are the ones that you tell yourselves throughout the day. And our story is like this ongoing narrative about the past, about the future, about other people, what's happening to us, why it's happening to us, um, and who we think we are. And for most of our life, or most of our life story, is influenced by people that affect us. And it's also automatically and unconsciously written in our minds. So we don't really question what we tell ourselves and others when we're thinking about our life story. And also, our story it's not just an account of events that have happened to us, like, oh, I dropped out of school, or I got a new job, or I moved to another state, and so on. Our story is so much more. It influences how we see ourselves, it influences how others see us, and most importantly, who we think we can become. So, quite simply, our life story defines us and it defines who we think we are. So, if our stories define who we are, you'd think that we'd tell better stories about ourselves. Have you ever noticed that most of our other people's life stories just focus on what's wrong and it focuses on the negative? And we wouldn't intentionally present our life story in that way, but we're not really thinking about when we think about our life story, we're not thinking about how negative it is usually. We're just automatically talking about it. And for the most part, that's true. But most of us aren't aware of why we tell such lousy stories to ourselves and to others. And unfortunately, we can't always trust the stories that we tell ourselves. And I'm going to tell you why. It is a survival mechanism that keeps us safe. Our minds are wired to focus on the negative experiences. And we naturally attach greater meaning to negative experiences. So they just stand out more in our minds. And so the truth of your story often becomes inaccurate or exaggerated. And then you add like other people's influence on it and our limited and faulty memory. So your life story really becomes distorted. And at the end of the day, our story, it's a real reflection of who we are. So we want to make sure that we're telling an accurate and a good one, an empowering one. So a great example of how we connect negativity to our lives is in our speech. Now, have you ever caught yourself saying, um, that's the story of my life when something bad happens? But we never say this when something good happens. And We also tend to dismiss or play down any good that we accomplish. How many times have you said something like this to yourself? I finally left an abusive relationship, but I'm always going to be a victim. Or I quit smoking, but now I gained 10 pounds. So then we focus on what's wrong, not what we actually did that was right. And we tell ourselves harmful stories of what we can't do before we even try doing anything. Like, I'm known as the lazy one in my family. There's no point trying. Or I'm not young enough, smart enough, outgoing enough, fill in the blank. So, based on this negative frame of mind, and the story that you tell yourself, can you see that you've probably made some pretty bad predictions and decisions in your life, um, based on this mindset, and how we're most likely going to continue if we don't change the story that we tell ourselves? But since we do have a choice in how we tell our life stories, it would make sense if we just stopped telling them. So, why do we continue to hang on to our stories and share them as well? Well, I'm going to give you 5 reasons why, and see if you can maybe relate to one of these reasons why we keep telling our um, negative stories. Number one, people love telling stories. We just do. We love to gather at work, at home, even at the grocery store, and we tell tales of how people wronged us, how we've been mistreated, how miserable we are. And sharing our stories it just becomes addicting. And the more we share our story, the more it becomes familiar to us, and the more it becomes habitual, and the more we become attached to it. And then we bond and connect to other people telling our stories. It just becomes a natural extension of ourselves. Number two, believe it or not, we often use stories as an excuse to fail. Now, if your life revolves around nothing ever working out for you or you having no control over your life, then your story justifies you not trying anything or taking responsibility for your own life. Why even bother making changes if your story is one of failure? But is it really, or is that what you're telling yourself? Number three, our stories can make us feel more productive than what we are. For instance, say you decide you want to eat healthier, and it seems like nothing ever works. But we tell ourselves that we tried 100 times in 100 different ways, 100 different meal plans to lose weight, and nothing worked. But did you? Did you really try 100 different times? Or did you try maybe 2 different meal plans 2 times and then gave up on yourself before you had a chance? And this applies to anything that we might want to do or stop doing. So we often have tales of how we tried everything in the world, um, but but often we don't genuinely think, or we do think that we just put so much effort into it, but we really don't. Number four, our stories, even the most harmful stories, can make us feel safe. If we continue repeating the past, at least then we'll know what's coming in the future. At least we are familiar with our problems and issues that are going to arise. And if you change your life and story, then it just seems really unfamiliar and really unsafe, because then we're not sure what new problems are going to come in. Number five, on the flip side, you can make your story sound more optimistic than what it really is. And doing this is actually a way to avoid the truth about our lives. Maybe we do this out of embarrassment, are trying to live up to a certain self-image that we have built up, and we don't want to come across as not having this great positive life. And so we might pretend everything is excellent, but our relationships, our health, our mental states are all in jeopardy. And doing this is just as harmful as telling a negative story, because we remain in denial as long as we tell this false narrative. And you want to see things as they are, no worse and no better. So, were you able to identify any of these reasons that I just listed for holding on to your story, even if it's negative? Um, they do help us. These reasons help us cope with our life and our pain, but it doesn't help to advance our life. So, I mean, you might have indeed been a victim at one point in your life and experienced some really harsh situations like I did. And the point is not to change that fact or to gloss over or deny that there was painful chapters in your life. It's important to give your pain a purpose. We want to know that we didn't go through all these painful parts of our life for nothing, and we didn't. But that purpose shouldn't be to remain stuck in excuses and to suffer the rest of our life because we keep telling this negative story. So we have to challenge those parts of this story that aren't true, that are distorted, and that are exaggerated, and then begin reframing um, our limited perspective of our old story and to put it into a more positive light. So now I'm going to briefly touch on how to rewrite a more empowering story. So if it's challenging for you to understand how you view your life story, how envision it as a movie with you as a spectator. So you'll begin to see how the way you tell your story constantly to yourself and others limit you. Just like you can't judge a movie by one scene, you cannot judge your life story by one chapter. You need to see the bigger picture. And this technique of looking at your life story as a movie allows you to look at it from a different and outside perspective. So you've always been writing, editing, and directing your life story. All stories have a main character who wants something and conflict stands in their way. There's turning points of the story. There's where the character goes through changes in circumstances, and there's plot twists that define their story. But how the story is interpreted is critical because it defines who you are and your position in life. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, what is my dominant story from my past? What scenes repeatedly play in my mind over and over again? What is the theme in my story? Is it about inner strength? Is it about persistence, obligation, or sacrifice? Is it about control or victimizing? Is it about maybe perseverance or success? Or maybe it could be about boredom and excuses. And within our story, we play different roles. So maybe your role is playing the scapegoat, maybe you're the hero, the villain, maybe you're the leader, troublemaker, peacemaker. And this is the self-image that you present to the world, but it's actually kind of like a role. And when we play in a role, there's often a script that we subconsciously follow. It's like this certain way that we automatically act and speak in different situations with different people. For example, you might wonder, why do you have the same arguments with the same people over and over again? Or Why do you get excited when you see someone else and always have a good time? Um, it's because like we're following a script sort of when we were just different people in different situations. But the problem is that you can become stuck in an undesirable role. Um, Repeating the same toxic situations and same toxic behavior over and over again. And you have to take a look at what role am I playing right now? Is this really what I want to be doing? And if you want to break out of that role and start another one, you can. Just take a look at your life story. And maybe your identity was shaped by someone else's views, or you let someone else write your script when you needed to take back the pen. So yes, your struggles and challenges are a huge part of who you are, but don't dismiss the fact that there was a lot of life altering breakthroughs that you overcame, that you went through, and we have to include that also in our story. So I know that you may feel that you've been telling your limited stories for so long that it's all you know, and it seems so genuine and permanent and hard to let go of, but you can. If you don't like the story you tell yourself, um, the story you relate to your coworkers, to your friends and families, and even strangers who will listen to you, remember, your story becomes temporary once you stop telling it. Stop repeating, stop re experiencing, and stop recreating it over and over again. Your negative story traps you in a lousy self image. It influences you and how other people see you. Stop telling it. As long as you keep telling people that you're a certain way and that you do certain things, that's going to continue to happen. They will. You're going to be that certain way. Now, we cannot change the past, but we can change how we interpret the past. And that's what you're doing when you're rewriting your life story of the past. So, what can we do right now immediately? So, what small changes can we make? There's immediate action that you can take. Start being mindful of the story that you tell yourself and others. When you catch yourself thinking about your life story, if it's negative, pause and just stop yourself. And then you want to take time to actually physically rewrite your old story into a new empowering story. Become clear on what aspects that you want to change in your story. Not only what you want to change, but why you want to change it. What parts of your story are holding you back? Um, what does my story say about myself and others? Is this story what I really want to tell other people? What positive things did I overlook? Do I need to change my supporting cast? In other words, do I need to address some people that I need to let go in my environment, and maybe some new people I need to let in? So once you rewrite your story of the past, continue aligning that story with the present and the future. Just like a series in a movie, there is a to be continued in your story, and there is what is going to happen next. So sure, I mean, you can't control everything that happens in your life, but with a brand new script, you can write a compelling preview of what's going to come next. And moving forward is going to determine how your story will unfold. And this is very, very powerful. And if you would like to connect with me, you can connect with me at elizabethharpercoaching.com. You can sign up for my signature course, Confident You Makeover. It's to help you practice the mindset of confidence and elevate your self-image. And you can also get a free 30-page Become a Confident Manifester workbook to co-create with the universe in writing your next life chapter. I want to thank you for joining me tonight. And I hope to hear from you soon. And I wish everybody